Good evening, everyone. My name is Lawrence Staten. I'm the chair of the history department at Washington Latin Public Charter School, just inside Washington, D.C. And we are here for an informal chat with the cast and crew of 1787, the American Constitution. This is a production that was spearheaded by David Garrigus, who's with us, and we have two of the cast members. David Whalen, who plays His Excellency George Washington, and Michael Lake, who plays the delegate and the good gentleman from Virginia, James Madison. Thank you so much for being with us. Looking forward to having a wonderful conversation with you all this evening.
Great to be here.
Thank you so much, Lawrence.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. So let me start with David Garrigus here as the creator and sort of fearless leader of this project. What inspired you to do a film on the American Constitution?
Well, this is my second feature film historical documentary. My first was about the Wright brothers' invention of the airplane. And it's kind of the same creation story. I'm really attracted to these creation stories. One day there's nothing, and then after all this grueling hard work, they create something out of it. And it's something that I didn't know about, the 1787 story about how the Constitution was created. And I figured, hey, if there's an interesting story there, I want to be the one to tell it.
David Whalen and Michael Lake, what was it like for both of you to sort of inhabit these important figures to American and arguably world history?
For me, once I was cast in it, I started doing research, and I read a couple other books about Washington and saw some movies. And the challenge was to make the character kind of three-dimensional, not just the guy on a dollar bill. Trying to, and David and I would talk about some things here and there. So, and it's very much like Shakespeare, this kind of heightened language. You have to make it conversational.
Michael, if I can ask,
Sure.
as James Madison, how was it going, quote unquote, up against George Washington in sort of like the dialogue and in the debates? Because Madison was so pivotal to getting Washington to come out of retirement. What was that like?
Yeah, I think it was a good opportunity to find a lot of fun nuance as a performer, as kind of portrayed in the story we were telling and kind of through the pages of history. He wasn't necessarily the best orator. He wasn't necessarily the most virtuous kind of leader, and he wasn't necessarily the easiest to work with or the best negotiator. I think it was a very interesting time in Madison's life because he did eventually become the fourth president. But I think in these days, he was sort of really struggling to find his footing as someone in power.
David Whalen, you can jump in here as with the kind of like the follow-up. As you researched these men and portrayed them, did anything about them surprise you? Was there anything that you found was like, wow, that's really surprising to learn? And how did that affect your portrayals?
Oh yeah. I mean, just what Michael said too, these men were so complex. Learning about his relationship with Billy, who was side by side with him. And you don't think of that. I didn't think of that as Washington, that he would have an African-American who would be one of his closest confidants and would refer to him and say, I'm going to ride ahead. And he would say, no, you're not. He goes, I'm riding ahead. No, you're not. I'm moving ahead. And not without me. You know what I mean? And just that kind of fun that there's something vulnerable about that he's not just stoic.
As actors, as professionals, what drew you to this project?
When do you get a chance to play the father of the country you were born and raised in? Honestly, I mean, it was an honor. And when David said, hey, I think I'm going to go with you. And then I just kind of indulged myself into that world, you know what I mean? Of his world, and try to make it complete and as truthful and still bring myself to the role.
Yeah, I think bringing yourself, your own element to it is very important. There's no kind of existing video of these guys,
Right.
so you have to kind of bring your own gravity to it. You can study up on them, and that's kind of what drew me personally to it. I love knowing as much about a character as I possibly can, and when the character is a real person, there's lots and lots of really fun research you can do. You can just knowing everything you can about that person kind of informs the way you play them.
Some of the dialogue, Lawrence, even though we say it's kind of archaic or written 200 years ago, some of it could be said today about the trying times. Like I forget one of the lines, but it was like, never was there a day more dark than today. And never, and it just reminds me of January, probably the morning of the 7th, that I would have said something like almost exactly what Washington said. When the dialogue is that present and still alive, it's easy for an actor to say, this is what it means to me, David Wayland, spoken as George Washington. So I have a personal connection to the material that George must have had at that moment when he said it.
Michael Lake, any last thoughts that you had?
I think something really kind of special about film is knowing that it's going to be around. That's the staunch difference between any other kind of artistic form like theater or anything. Just knowing that your film is always going to exist. I think that's very, very cool. And now the knowledge that the words of the framers are always going to exist in this medium, I think that's very important. Hopefully that'll be very important for generations of people who watch this movie. So yeah, I'm just very honored and to be a part of it, and I had the most wonderful time working on it.
Well, we just want to take this opportunity to thank all three of you for spending part of this day with us. We really appreciate sharing some of the insights into the making of 1787, the American Constitution. And, we hope all of you watching, take some time to enjoy the work that these actors have done and the work of the cast and the crew. And we hope you enjoy 1787. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, David and Michael. Appreciate it.